another aspect is just the fact that many of the what's provided as alternative is more of the mainstream, just under disguise. So you still have a lot of calories in, calories out, eat less, exercise more. That's a huge aspect, especially within fitness and bodybuilding. I mean, that is still the prevailing idea, not to mention just the concept of bodybuilding, I don't think is one that's particularly constructive or supportive to health. Again, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, there's details there, of course, but the idea that we should sacrifice our health for a ridiculous artificially created body, I think is questionable for sure. You also have, of course, the different factions of nutritional perspectives, everything from veganism to carnivorism, which all have their own issues and all come with their own dogmatism and tribalism, just like within the mainstream. And so I think those are also areas that are, that can lead us astray even when we're straying from the mainstream. And then the last piece I would mention here is, and I think this is one of the larger umbrellas and biggest umbrellas within the alternative health space, is that it is still hormesis-driven, stress-driven, and fighting against your body driven. So on the hormesis side, we have this idea that the stress is what leads to benefits, and that's why you still need to calorie restrict and fight against your hunger, and you need to fast, and you need to avoid carbohydrates, you need to exercise super hard, you need to jump in the cold baths, on and on and on. And, we've talked about those issues. I think that's super pervasive. And again, when we're talking both alternative and mainstream, I think the biggest issue here is, one of the biggest issues here is this idea of fighting against our bodies. This idea that if your cholesterol is elevated, that is the problem. That's not an intelligent response by the body to deal with an issue. Maybe an immune response to endotoxin, or a response to not having enough thyroid activity to produce steroid hormones. Same thing with blood pressure. This isn't a systemically cohesive, intelligent response to increase circulation or to increase oxygen delivery or nutrient delivery. Instead, this is our body in its stupidity that is just, whether due to genetics or due to misinterpreting some aspect of our environment, it is fighting against us, and we need to suppress it, whether it's with a drug or a supplement or some sort of, lifestyle intervention, some sort of injection, or again, cold therapy or cold bath, something like that. And so that is hugely pervasive, I think, throughout all of this, is this idea of fighting against our bodies instead of recognizing its intelligibility and its adaptability and its cohesion and its response and to the environment is in the right context or in a proper context. So yeah, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, I just want to point out here, Jay, I think that if I lost 5 years off my life so that I could have cannonball delts, that would be a good sacrifice.
Exactly.
Or growing the peach, there's nothing like a nice peach. So 10 years off my life so I can, really, get the boys, then yeah, I'll do all that.
Exactly. It's just replace, fancy car or nice, house, mansion, whatever with the physique.
Yeah. I think the alternative health sphere is, I think part of the problem is how things are thought about. Part of the problem is that this fear and with the current online social media landscape is it's been being treated like a market. So people are finding some niche and then marketing to that particular niche, and there's less of a focus on truth. So it's the same problem that you're experiencing inside the allopathic model with a pharmaceutical profit motive. But it's just wrapped with different solutions. So in most, at least in my experience, the other thing is it's all about marketing to the audience. These simple ideas that are easy to propagate and easy for people to latch onto, to understand things. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the destruction of the individual's health, their ability to critically think, adjusting mental frameworks. So people are looking for singular solutions to multifactorial problems, and they're driven by very specifically tangible results. I just have rapid weight loss. And so that is a barometer, this hyper focus on weight then therefore this thing must be healthy, without trying to first understand first of all, what am I defining health as? Like, what is my healthy outcome? So is it just not being fat? Well, I think that's a very narrow definition of, and probably a very incomplete definition of health. So that's one piece. And that's also propagated in the sphere. And then, so there's that component, this like simplification and marketing and advertising of some health idea. There's how these things are thought about overall. So it's still coming from, I'm not treating your high cholesterol with atorvastatin. No, I'm taking red yeast rice. That's healthier. And it's like, yes, it's the source of lovastatin. You're taking a natural statin. So things from that perspective, it's not, there's no frame or change in frame on how things are thought about. And this comes back to that, the meta thought process. How are you thinking about a problem instead of just changing solutions to the problem within that same general line, that same type of thought process? So I think the sphere becomes a minefield because people are like looking. The other thing is the discernment problem. There's so many different marketing angles and this and that, and that's going to solve everything. And if I go low carb, or if I just get rid of animal products, these like very simple solutions, I'll achieve some type of health benefit. And the hard part about that, I think, for a lot of people, and obviously I've gone through that, you've gone through that, is that there are elements of truth in all of the marketing pieces, but it's you get really good when you go through the sphere of discerning where's the truth and then where's the ideology that follows after that. If you go through it enough times, you kind of find, well, there's this nugget of truth in there that somebody has created a nice wrapping for. So they have this little piece of steak and they put a lot of sizzle behind it to get you into the sphere. And I think that is another element. I think this speaks to a larger cultural component or a consciousness component inside the American culture, with a focus on providing people or providing a service or product for a profit motive without having some underlying like enlightened component of where you're trying to provide something that actually benefits the individual and benefits people. It's like the profit motive starts to take precedence. So there's multiple pieces here that I think are driving some of the dysfunction you see in this alternative sphere that makes it such a minefield for people. And that's important to keep in mind. The other last piece that I think is that because you have all these pieces going on, there's a complete, like, people just don't want to talk about the basics. People don't want to talk about it. You have to avoid all animal foods. It's like, why don't you eat enough? Why don't you not have 32 ounces of steak a day, but also don't have 0 ounces of steak a day? Like, have 4 ounces of steak at lunch and have 2 eggs or 3 eggs for breakfast with your juice and your fruit and, a little bit of oatmeal if that's what works for you, or some fried potatoes or something. Like, those things are, these basic things still hold truth, but people, they don't sell really. But it's really what comes down, like, even when I'm working with clients, when you're working with clients as well, it's like the foundation takes precedence and then the supplements and other things come in later on, depending on if they are needed. So fix those foundational elements first. It's just that message doesn't, it's not sexy. It doesn't sell like, it doesn't have such shock value. Like, your steak is giving you cancer or your egg yolks are giving you heart disease. So I think the general focus would be to focus on the foundational components. I think there's a loss of that for the marketing element, and that's a product of the culture as well. And so that's a big piece that I see in the alternative spheres. It's getting engulfed by these other things, and it's the motives behind it are not ideal, and how the sphere is thinking about things are not ideal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to make a clarification again that focusing on the foundations or the basics does not mean everything in moderation. We're not trying to suggest that narrative either. Just because veganism we don't see as ideal, or carnivorism we don't see as ideal, we're not saying that everything in moderation is the solution either. I think it's much more nuanced, and there are actually some things that are ideal to have not at all, and some that are ideal to have in considerable amounts. So that's what we talk about all the time on the podcast. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't that somebody didn't interpret it that way.
If you enjoyed that clip, you'll definitely want to download the free Energy Balance Food Guide. The Energy Balance Food Guide will help you determine exactly what to eat to optimally support your metabolism and help you lose weight, improve your digestion, get amazing sleep, boost your energy, and so much more. The food guide makes it extremely easy to get started with a bioenergetic approach to optimizing your health. So head over to jfeldmanwellness.com/guide to download your free Energy Balance Food Guide.